Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, or Madam Chair. I'd like to go over some history as to why we are where we are today on this. And I want to make sure that some of these tidbits are on record. So let's start by saying Alberta's foray into the deregulated power began in April 1998. I mean, you can find these tidbits as you dig through, you can find different things. When Ralph Klein's progressive conservative government passed the Utilities Amendment Act. Interesting. You won't be cheering here when I get through this. The Act paved the way for open electricity market on January 1st, 2001. Okay, where power companies could compete for customers and government would step away from setting prices. This is where the problem started. Competition and the introduction of contracts was supposed to keep the prices low. Did it happen? No. The reality wasn't that straightforward, and consumers were in for a wild ride. And boy, were they ever. Before deregulation took effect, power generators were barely keeping up with the demand, right? They were making about 1% more power than what they needed. They said that they needed about a 20% increase in there so that they could maintain the system for stability. On June 12, 1998, when two major power generators were down for maintenance, utilities were forced to cut power to thousands of people, Edmonton, Calgary, to prevent a province-wide blackout. They just didn't have the power. In October, 15,000 Calgary homes lost electricity, and companies told Edmonton Industries to cut consumption when turbines broke down. It led to allegations and an investigation that companies purposely withheld power to inflate prices during high demand. That's all in history. And we don't need Bill 16 to protect consumers, do we? Okay, let's get back into this. On the first day of deregulation approached in late 2000, power prices soared. That's a fact. The Klein government had already promised a $20 a month rebate to consumers to protect consumers in 2000. And you're talking about what we're doing under Bill 16. Very interesting. Klein also promised, get this, $300 to every Albertan from the proceeds of the first power auction, which netted the government $1.1 billion on the backs of all Albertans. That's who paid the price for this. That's who paid the price. Not the carbon tax or anything else. But the political blowback was growing over this, right? Right? So surcharges to power bills pushed the government to halt free hikes requests so that they could be evaluated for fairness. Obviously, they knew it was unfair at that time, did they not? Yeah, obviously. A month before the market was supposed to operate unhindered, the government suddenly imposed an 8-cent per kilowatt hour cap on the price of power to prevent prices from skyrocketing in 2001. Interesting, isn't it? 21 days later, the government changed its plan again, raising the cap to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Go figure. And we don't need Bill 16, do we? No. Right? Doubling the consumer power rebate to $40 a month. By early 2001, researchers who had studied the deregulation move said it had already cost Alberta consumers billions of dollars. Billions of dollars it cost Alberta consumers. And here's another interesting tidbit that's out there. Okay? Small towns were particularly hard hit by the new regime. By 2003, village community halls, ice arenas, curling rinks were facing shutdown over power bills that had tripled or quadrupled. In some cases, counties had to step in to keep the recreational facilities open. That's all there. You can't deny that. The utilities are the biggest single factor. There's no question in my mind, Grand Prairie City Councillor said at the time, it's killing the small communities little by little, and it's killing the clubs. This is what they said at the time.
That was the PCs that did that.
By then, Klein acknowledged deregulation had not gone well. Go figure. And here's another interesting tidbit, okay? That same year, the government also changed the way the cost of electrical infrastructure was covered, shifting the entire cost of transmission onto consumer bills, when half the costs were covered by the generators before. Consumers are still on the hook today for that. And we get complaints every day into my office about that very thing.
I'm sure they're going to try and blame us.
And how unfair that was. Totally unfair. But then we don't need Bill 16, do we? Well, I disagree. I was paying this price and I still am. And that's fair. Well, it isn't. 3 years later, power prices rose to among the highest in the country. The Liberals, who had opposed the rapid price of deregulation more than a decade earlier, said it was time to admit deregulation had not attracted more competition or better service. Well, that is a fact. And we don't need Bill 16. Really. You know, you hear all the tidbits over there. I mean, these are the facts that are out there. This is why we need it, to protect consumers. Supply problems caused 2 more major blackouts in cities, one in 2006, another in 2012. Suspicion persisted that companies purposely kept their supply low to keep prices high. And we don't need to protect consumers. Really? In 2011, TransAlta was fined, which they should have been, after admitting it turned away power from BC to artificially inflate prices. Yeah, right. The rule of law, they got fined for doing that, didn't they? So this is why we need Bill 16. That's why it's important that we support it, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.